I want to go across to the president of the US-India Business Council to try and understand this whole tariffs business, which could become a big talking point in the Trump and Modi meeting. Atul Keshap, President USIBC, is now joining us. Thank you very much, Ambassador Keshap. Let me start with you. This is Prime Minister Modi's first visit to the Trump White House in Mr. Trump's second term. It's at a time when, global relations are shifting. We've seen Mr. Trump's White House issue tariffs on a whole bunch of countries, on Canada, on Mexico, on China. What is the significance of Prime Minister Modi meeting with President Trump so early in his second term? I believe he'll be the fourth guest, fourth head of government to be visiting the White House just in the last 3 weeks that Mr. Trump has been president in his second term. Specifically on the issue of trade and tariffs, how does India navigate this?
So, Zaka, first of all, let's just take a moment to appreciate the fact that Prime Minister Modi is one of the top world leaders to come and make an early call on President Trump in this new administration. We've only had the prime ministers of Israel and Japan. We'll have the king of Jordan today, and then Prime Minister Modi. And that's really quite a reflection of Prime Minister Modi's relationship with President Trump and the regard, frankly, that I think the American people have for India. So let's celebrate that, and then let's move on to the agenda of the discussion. Obviously, we have an enormous amount that we view in common. We have shared strategic perspectives on the Indo-Pacific, on Africa, on the Indian Ocean, Pacific region, Latin America, and Middle East. And so there'll be a lot of discussion about the strategic convergence between Delhi and Washington. But there's also going to be a lot of talk about the economy, because India and the United States are two of the most vibrant economies on earth. We are growing well. We have large, diverse populations. We have an enormous, broad, well-developed economies, and we need to keep that going. It's important that that winning streak be sustained. And so what I hope is that both leaders will have ambition for the relationship between the United States and India, and that they will take bold steps toward maybe even some form of trade agreement that would facilitate the growth of our relations. In truth, trade relations between the U.S. and India are a little bit stalled out on a plateau. They haven't been growing very fast. They need innovation. They need opening up. They need some reforms. And this is where I think the two leaders can inject a lot of ambition if they have the kind of conversation I expect they will have, which is an honest, friendly, direct, open conversation about issues that constrain our trade and economic relationship.
President Trump has expressed deep concerns, even in the past, about India's trade high import duties on American products. In fact, in his first term, he publicly talked about the Harley-Davidson motorcycle and how India had, sky-high tariffs. India has progressively brought down the tariffs on motorcycles, for example. Even in the recently concluded budget, the duties have been reduced down to 30%. What are the areas and what are the specific sectors you believe India can address this trade imbalance issue? India currently has about a 30 billion or so trade surplus with the United States if you were to go by the first 9 months of the fiscal year 24-25. What are some of the specific sectors where you believe India can be seen as offering some concessions to President Trump? Because clearly this is a very, very important issue on his agenda for President Trump when it comes to the use of tariffs against what he feels are unfair trade practices across the world.
There are concerns expressed by President Trump and many of the senior leaders in this administration that India still has very high structural trade deficit. Now, that may be for reasons of consumer preference, but there's also a feeling being expressed in those circles that India has very high tariffs, it has very high non-tariff barriers, and it has other forms of what some regard as protectionism that don't facilitate the growth of free trade, especially between the United States and India. So my hope would be that when friends meet, and these will be friends who are meeting, friends who have due regard for one another, that each side can bring to the other its concerns about hindrances or limitations that restrict the growth of trade and investment and economic innovation between our two countries. If anything, President Trump has talked about unleashing the animal spirits of the United States and increasing our economic growth, making us a more efficient economy. I would like that to happen in India as well. And I think that Prime Minister Modi, who has a very strong track record of reform and opening up and restructuring in India after its socialist era. We'll also look at ways that we can really unleash the animal spirits of India and Indian innovation and of the Indian economy and the Indian people. There's a little too much, as I said, sort of ossification in how we view trade with one another. And we're two of the most dynamic societies on earth. So why must we remain content with what we have? I would say that we should present our concerns with each other on trade and on skilled immigration and whatever the issues are related to non-tariff barriers or obstructions in either direction,
Okay.
and then work toward breaking those down for the benefit of our people and our companies and our investors. And on this, I'd like to make another important point. I believe that Indian companies in America are not only respected and welcome, they hire, they pay taxes, they upskill our workforce, they increase our competitiveness, they enhance our capabilities, and I think they are welcome. If you look at all the governors who roll out the red carpet for Indian companies in America and the treatments that they get, and I would like that to be the same for American companies in India.
Okay.
And I would hope that Indians would view American companies, many of whom have been there for decades, as helping lift India's game and make India more competitive and more capable on the global stage, so that India doesn't have to, hide behind protectionism and tariffs, but can actually unleash itself in ways that are good for the Indian people and good for
All right.
growth in India.
Ambassador Atul Kashyap of the US India Business Council, thank you very much for joining us here on Brass Tacks. Thank you.